Welcome to Arts Dynamics Talks. I'm Sophie Marion, founder and CEO of Arts Dynamics, and every week I've got the great privilege of speaking with great thought leaders and experts in the intersection of creativity, technology, and business for impact. The reason why we're doing this is that things are moving so fast. And what better way than to speak with the people who are actually at the forefront of this and to tune into what they're doing that's working, what's not working, what are the trends that they are seeing. But it's also a way to connect you with resources and, again, the experts in various fields so that you know that there is help out there if you need it. And we are more than happy to connect you with these people. And for those of you who are with us live today, feel free to comment in the comment section, say hello, introduce yourself, let us know who you are, and if you've got any questions for the guests today. So with that, it brings me great pleasure to welcome Martin Högenberg and Albert Bengtson, who are really driving the change in the world of XR, VR, immersive intelligence. Yes, we'll talk much more about that. But Martin, Visual Arena, Albert Bengtson, XR Captain, Epicenter Stockholm, I wish you a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's exciting to have you here. So I always start these sessions by letting you introduce yourself to the audience. So who wants to go first and just tell us a little bit more about you and what it is that you do?
Albert,
Martin?
you're the first one.
Well, my name is Albert Bengtson. I've been building up this XR cluster at Epicenter Stockholm, which is a innovation house. And I have done several hackathons here together with companies like Meta. And we have a focus on a project we've been doing for the innovation department of Sweden, which is focusing on what happens to XR and when it interacts with AI and becomes something new, and how can we build a community to support Sweden and the Nordics and globally for this change paradigm shift to actually happen, and that Sweden comes out as a strong country when this happens.
Brilliant. And for those that might not understand what XR is or what it means, can you just tell us more about the definition of XR?
XR, the definition of extended reality is virtual reality and augmented reality, together with also kind of mixed reality.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And what about you, Martin? Tell us more about you and Visual Arena.
So I'm kind of a curious guy, and I try to follow and understand what is happening all around us. And since 3 years, I've been at Visual Arena because I'm curious about the area of visualization where XR, immersive intelligence, spatial computing, or whatever you actually call it, actually starts to grow right now. And at Visual Arena, we are an open innovation arena that focuses on helping others to explore those new areas. So we are here giving the opportunities for companies, teams, and people to come here to gather insights and learning, to meet other people, to learn about those new opportunities. And that's kind of what we do. We guide them. Sometimes we do that by just having different kind of events here at Visual Arena in Gothenburg. Sometimes we do that by doing different kind of projects, sometimes only with like private businesses, sometimes with public organizations, often including the academia. And then sometimes we do projects in Gothenburg, in Sweden, and then we are also often out in the European landscape with European projects, trying to build collaboration in different kind of ways.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It means so much to have you with us today because people might not know this, but you were so instrumental in also helping us with Arts Dynamics get to where we are today. I've carried this vision for so many years to build this world-class arts entrepreneurship education company on Earth and in space. And it's like protecting humans in a world of technology and exploring new digital innovation trends and to see what it means for us in the tech, in the creative safe space. But sometimes it can be hard to know where to find these tools, how to try them on, and also as a creator to also play around with them. And both of you, I was invited and we were invited as a partner. There was this global game jam hackathon, and I remember it vividly to this day. I was so happy we were there as a partner, and Albert, you said, Sylvie, why don't you share about the vision about a cultural center on Mars? And I'm like, we're just here as a partner, we are here to support others. And should I really? But Albert, you said, go on and talk about this. And I did. And that actually resulted then in us building a virtual spatial art gallery within 24 hours. And all the things that have happened since would never have happened without that hackathon. And the reason why I want to bring up that story is for people listening to understand that it is about a we and when we work together, and also the power of when you have people who understand the technology, who are there to provide the space for you to play around with it and to support you, what the magical things that can happen to that. So first, I just want to give you a big shout out, both Albert and Martin, because Martin, that's also where you and I met. So with that, for anyone who just would like to know more about just hackathons, let's just take a minute or two. Hackathons, or these activities when you're able to try out and test out this new technology. Can you just talk to that a little bit about from your end? What is your experience when you create these either half day or full day workshops, or even weekends sometimes, and some your experience with it, and also some of the great results you've seen on the back of that? Us is obviously one, but you've got so many more. I know that for a fact.
I think it's extremely important to just play around with technology and also mix people, having the people with certain ideas and business insights, meeting the people that are actually able to create and build something with their hands. But for that to happen, it's I think hackathons or any kind of funds that gives that opportunity is really great. I think 10 years ago I did one for in the fashion industry, and people were actually making clothing with new technology in it. I still have a lot of excitement from that happening. So, and this is a great arena. What comes out now with AI, it goes so much faster to build things, and doing things that are visual and being able to try that out. It's a great tool.
Yeah, it is for sure. And Martin, I know for a fact you've been doing this for many years with Visual Arena. So obviously over the years, I read somewhere that you got more than 1,000 innovation projects and sprints under your belt. So what has been your experience going back throughout the years from where you started and where you are today?
I think you actually started it pretty good when you introduced a hackathon about this thing that I would like to call human connections. This is a place to connect people, to play around, as Albert say, with technologies, and also play around with ideas, and also to challenge each other's ideas and finding new ways. Because what is happening when you connect people is that suddenly in this long journey of an idea, an innovation, a transformation or something, people actually start to help you. And also, as you said, suddenly someone invites you to go somewhere and so on. And I think this is one of the key things with hackathons. It makes people actually meet new people, and then suddenly you create this kind of movement. And when we at Visual Arena work with everything we do, it's not only for the hackathon, it's for everything. We always measure and see how many human connections do you have. Because then I say to them, because you never know when Sophie will start and actually help you. You never know when Albert will start and help you. So connect with them. And then suddenly in this journey, which is often a bumpy journey, they start and help you. And I think this also comes down to one of the key insights from doing many different kind of hackathons and similar activities, is that it doesn't end with the hackathon. No. The hackathon is just a spark and ignite. It's something that starts out there. And then often what is happening when I've seen innovation going actually forward, it happens afterwards. It is how we take action on the different kind of new ideas and prototypes that you see from an hackathon. And I think this also comes down, then it's extremely important when you do an hackathon so that you do them in a way so that you can actually get those different things happening afterwards as well.
I feel it's important to bring this up early on in the conversation. We've got so many artists, musicians, creators within the cultural and creative industries who either have never heard about hackathons or they would never attend because it just feels, far too distant and strange even. And I really just want to debunk that and say, just like we are doing in the performing arts, in arts, culture, and entertainment, we do play around all the time. And this is literally just playing around with technology. And just like you said, both of you, it's an opportunity to test out your creative ideas, to prototype something without the stress that often comes when you have a certain deadline or you want to do something bigger, or you might have applied for grants and you need to fulfill a specific criteria. A hackathon or an activity like this that we're talking about allows you to try things out. And what was the biggest thing when we worked together there earlier this year was that I hadn't planned at all on doing this even. Because, when we talked on the Friday, I had no plans on doing this. I was just there to support the people who were there. And then on the Saturday, and I went out having dinners with a few people, was really great. And then on the Thursday, the Saturday, around lunchtime, I met a developer. And then suddenly he said, tell me more. And then he just stood up, he brought his laptop, and then 24 hours later, we had a full prototype. And you can now find it on YouTube. I'm just blown away still by that. That I'm still blown away by that experience.
And I think that is the important part here. I mean, the people with creative ideas and dreams, to meet those who are actually able to visualize that and help you with the technology, that is worth so much.
Yeah, and to have people like you to hold the space and to carry us through all the emotions that comes with that. But can you also please speak a little bit to XR and immersive intelligence? Because I've heard you mention immersive intelligence. I love that term, by the way. So Albert, tell us more about immersive intelligence. What is it, and how does that differ maybe from XR?
So this last half year, when we've been investigating how we could become a much more supportive community for people within XR, we saw that the technology is extremely different before AI and after AI. The new kind of elements you have in being able to put AI-driven avatars inside of a VR experience, as an example, makes the technology totally different. And everywhere on Earth right now, everybody's discussing, so what word are we going to use for describing this? Is this spatial computing, or is it from XR, the word immersive, since you have glasses and you're inside of an experience. We wanted to use that word. At the same time, the word intelligence is extremely important, coming from artificial intelligence. So immersive intelligence, and we wanted that to be the equal of, let's go for AI, if that is measured in IQ from a human point of perspective, immersive intelligence should be the EQ, the emotional quote of some experience or an event or whatever. So really focusing on how can you give feelings, because when you get feelings, you learn faster, you can take other decisions. Storytelling will be totally different. So all this way of actually being within an experience, whether it's your intranet or it's a game, that is something that is going to change the world, how we see upon computing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Martin, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I think also it's when we started to do this work in the actually kind of beginning of this year, we got the assignment framed around XR. And then suddenly when we went out, we did like about 100 different kind of interviews with people all around the space. Then we started to see that when you go into the the space where people know that is actually familiar with XR, then it's no problem. They know what XR is, and that's not any problem. But then suddenly when you go out to other people, to new artists, to new business people, to whatever actually that don't know about XR itself, they don't know, because then they feel that they are not at home. But XR can actually meet a lot of needs and a lot of like problem solving and so on that is not connected to the technology. It's about what kind of problem you solve, what kind of needs you actually fulfill, and what kind of behaviors you can create with this kind of technology. So XR is kind of like, it's more like an interface. It's like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, those kind of things. So that's an interface. It doesn't say anything about the human. But as soon as we go to immersive intelligence, it's about you. We want you to be intelligent. We want you to understand the things that you see all around you, not only on glasses on your head, but also on different screens and in other kind of experiences. And I think that's the big change, because then suddenly when we go out and talk to people, immersive intelligence is of course new to like everyone, but then we want to explain what immersive intelligence is. And then we start and frame it by, it's actually good to learn in new ways, to take decisions, to create new kind of experiences. This is what immersive intelligence is. Are you interested in that? Yes, because we see a digital complex world out there that actually demands that you can navigate that complexity in a new way. AI is a good tool to navigate the data in one way. Immersive intelligence is a way to navigate the AI, but in a visual way, because we know that you can, by visualization, like understand and see things in completely new ways. So that's kind of how we develop this. So from XR, that is actually really limited and it's more interface based. Now we are more human based, and we are actually approaching the wider scope of different needs that we see society needs to fulfill, like learning, decision taking, and new kind of awesome experiences.
Excellent. And I know for both of you, you both value, as you said, the humans behind the tech, the higher purpose, the why should we use it in the first place, which is also why it's so important to have you here today and to really hear from you what you are seeing on the ground, because you work with this every day and with so many people from both Sweden and abroad. So obviously you have the finger on the pulse. I thought we were going to do something today that we did before, the SWOT analysis, and to take a look at what we're talking about through the lens of SWOT. Because we had a huge success doing that with when we talked about AI, and it opened up a conversation in a way that we maybe wouldn't have gone if we didn't do that. So how about we just dive straight into the SWOT analysis and we walk through it. And I've got some questions here that I'd love to ask you about. And also I invite people who are listening to ask questions in the comments. I'd be happy to bring them on live if possible. Or if you're listening to the podcast version on Spotify or a podcast platform, feel free to continue the conversation. This is really just a starting point. We're going to do more things together as well moving forward. So stay close and we'll update you on that too. But let's begin with the S of the SWOT, and S stands for strengths. So what would you say are the strengths of using this new technology, or not new, but rather new in a sense? What are the strengths for a creator, for an entrepreneur, or an intrapreneur, an organization to use this technology? So who wants to go first?
I can go first. As I said a little bit before, we need to understand what kind of world we live in right now. And I would say that the world that we live in right now is extremely complex and it's extremely digital. And is this development, you will see much more data. The amount of data in the world just explodes right now. You can't not even actually following the numbers like that, because I think they change each day. But if we understand that the amount of data that we have and taking bigger place in the society, then you need to be good at actually taking care of that kind of information and to understand it and to have valuable experiences for people. And I think that's the strength of immersive intelligence. It makes people more intelligent in actually being immersed in that kind of new society that we create.
Great answer.
To add to that also, I just would like to say yes, and I think it's going to be really important for humans to learn faster. We are in a as Martin is saying, we are in a world where we need to compute faster. Being faster to go through school or learn things 4 times faster, or having 4 times more knowledge when you come out of school, that would be really super interesting. And we have a lot of people who are getting very stressed, and a lot of problems when it comes to not being able to get the right school into your system, so to say, which I think is a super important part of this as well.
So what I'm hearing you say is education and learning seems to be a huge strength of this kind of technology, right?
100%. And it's lifetime learning, I would say, because I think it's going to be even more important for somebody that is 50, around my age, to start learning in a new way and pick up things. If we look at people using AI tools and stuff like that, it differs a lot, and that would be a good education to start with.
And how could people, because we do have a lot of educators in our community, how could they use XR and immersive intelligence? What would be your recommendations for anyone who would think about, not only as a consumer and using it as a student themselves, but also maybe want to incorporate this into what they're doing? Where would they start?
I think one of the key things is context. If you want to learn something, what is happening with the immersive things is that you can actually introduce people to virtual worlds, as an example. And then suddenly when you don't send people, if you would like to learn how to draw, if we take that as an example, of course you can watch YouTube and you can see how you draw and so on. But if you transfer that into doing the same kind of exercise in virtual reality instead, and you can actually not only draw, because in virtual reality you are in 3D and you can start and sculpt, and then you can build sculpture in different parts of the virtual world. As an example, here in Gothenburg we have a copy of the city, which is a digital twin of the city, and then suddenly I can go out there and actually learn how to sculpture sculptures in the city and move in between different kind of places. And this thing about actually giving learning about sculpturing, in this case, into the context of actually close to reality is extremely good, because doing this in reality is of course kind of complicated, going out in the city and building sculptures. But instead you can do this in virtual. And I think this is one of the key things for the learning, that you can actually build environments and worlds where you can try out, sometimes for learning, sometimes just for play. Sometimes you start with play and then you learn and so on. You know the kids, how they are building things in Minecraft and in Roblox, and in right now also like in Unreal, building own worlds in Fortnite and so on. And I think this is one of the key learning things.
Great.
I also want to add to that specific things that we've seen during this last year is popping up, and that is AI-driven avatars. And as an example, giving Leonardo da Vinci, giving a AI everything that he ever wrote, and analysis about him, giving that to an AI, making an avatar out of him, and then you go into virtual discussion or a virtual dinner with Leonardo da Vinci. The interesting part comes when you start asking, what kind of question will he start asking you? And because that's when you really start learning, when it's not about you finding out the information, it's about the information trying to find out who you are. You can see that when you prompt and do things with AI right now, that's a more advanced way of using it. But this is going to be totally insane. What if we had all 4th graders being able to talk with Leonardo da Vinci for an hour to understand our history better, or Jesus, or Mother Teresa, whomever? So personally, I would love to see to meet Bob Marley.
This is really the next level of the invisible board. I don't know if people are tuning in and know about invisible boards. It's really, you know, when you handpick people living or dead and you have them as your advisors. But what you're telling us here is like, why not take it a step further or 2 or 3 steps further and actually have dinner with them and hang out with them, have fun with them. Oh, crikey, that would be fun. We should do that. I look forward.
Yeah. We're close. Technology-wise, we're extremely close to that right now.
Yeah, if anyone in this community has any suggestions for who we should actually have these dinners with, maybe we could actually do that as a fun project within Arts Dynamics too. You know, who would you want to talk to? Maybe, you know, living or dead legends. Maybe living, that they might not be so happy if you start to talk to them.
It's probably more interesting than having Martin and me here.
This is a great conversation. I also, before we move on to the next letter in SWOT, there is one final thing. Speaking of the strength, I remember, and this is the power when you try things out yourself. Again, I just really want to emphasize that. That's why I brought up that example at the very beginning. It's one thing to talk about it, but unless you actually put yourself through the experience of doing it, then it's a different matter. So I remember when we built that spatial art gallery, I'm very particular with quality. I wanted to be in a certain way. So I went for Apple Vision Pro. And yes, I'm a big Apple fan. There, I said it. And I love the graphics and I just love the way it looks. It just looked brilliant. Having said that, what we discovered was that not everybody has an Apple Vision Pro. So if you want to democratize what you're building, if you want more people to have access to it, I remember we had the 3 of us, we had a conversation about which headsets to use depending on who your target market is, what it is that you're selling and creating, for also for usability, for distribution, and to make sure people can actually access what you're creating. So Meta, for instance, Oculus could be a better alternative maybe for some organizations and companies and entrepreneurs because they would reach more people. Before we move on, I'd just love for both of you to lean in on that question. So Martin, I'm going to start with you. Martin, what do you say? Which headset should we choose? And do you have any recommendations? I'm putting you on the spot, but tell us.
I would actually like to say, turn around, turn inside out instead of having that headset. You can actually do this in many different kind of ways. You don't need headset for everything. I think you should not focusing on too much of it's that headset. For really specific use cases, yes. When you know exactly what you should solve, then yes. But then you are, I would say, more into a corporate setting or a specific final show of an art piece or something like that, then you could go into a different kind of like hardware choices. But what is happening now in the immersive space, and this is also why XR tends to be a little bit hard to use, because XR is kind of an interface. It's kind of a hardware thing that you're actually talking about. But in the same way, what is happening right now is that you have like immersive installations where you don't use headsets on people. Instead, you have rooms like where I am right now that I can transform like this. So instead of having each people having a single headset, you transform the room instead by using projections, by using different kind of interaction methodologies, and of course using a lot of like spatial sound and so on. And suddenly you have transformed the environment instead. And if you look at what is happening right now, for sure in the art space, you see a lot of those kind of like art shows. And the first thing that has been happening is that you take like people like Da Vinci or something like that, or you take some old artists to actually put their work up. It's kind of boring. It's kind of more like a circus. But what is happening right now is that new artists start and try out how you can actually use these kind of immersive installations with projections instead. And I think that's actually much more interesting to have in mind, that you have so many different kind of choices. If you go headsets, if you go projections, or if you sometimes can use computers, but connecting them in a new kind of way and so on. So I would say don't go and look at what kind of headset you should use unless you are really in the end focusing on what is the experience that I want to give to people, and then start and explore that one. And then maybe the headset thing could be a question, but often not. It's another kind of question. So focusing on the human, what you want to do with them instead, and look around what is actually possible to do today with, of course, headsets, but also with other kind of technologies. I think it's hard to say it, but I think many of the headsets, they will be dead in some years. And I think some new headsets, and they are coming right now. Suddenly you put it straight into the glasses, suddenly you put it in the lens, suddenly you put it outside instead. And I think this is one of the key things, because so many regular kind of headsets has also failed. So you need to be aware of this is a landscape of technology that is changing extremely rapid right now. So don't focus too much on trying to release things on headsets, because suddenly Microsoft remove their headsets and then what should we do now? So be open and focus a little bit more on not only the headset things.
When we discuss this, we discuss the hardware, the software, the content, and also the strategies that companies have for doing all this. And as Martin's saying, a lot of large companies are putting a lot of investments into solving these kind of issues right now. So we haven't reached what we are calling the tipping point, where everything becomes so obvious. So we are in a pre-launch kind of situation. But it will happen rather sooner than later, due to the heavy investments and the extreme technology race that we have on Earth right now as well. So I agree with Martin. We should not focus on one headset. It's going to be many new different headsets out there.
And I think that coming down to that one and connecting a little bit is that what we have seen is that this field, much of the work actually lies in how you produce your content. And yes, the thing that is unique is that you produce content in 3D. And then you are actually leaning back to different kind of platforms like Unreal, like Unity, and then suddenly you go into how should we show this? And if you're going into virtual reality, then it's one track. If you're going into projections, then maybe it's Touch Designer, then it's another kind of track. And I think this is one of the key things that we also found, that the common thread that makes people available to actually learn from each other is it's about creating 3D content in a completely new kind of way. It has nothing to do with virtual reality or augmented reality. It's about how you actually create that content. And one of the key players creating 3D content is, of course, the gaming industry. So they have a lot of understanding and knowledge about how you actually create that kind of content. But then they produce that in actually sending it out to a regular kind of screen that you probably have in front of you today. But then you can, of course, use that and send it out to another kind of screen if you want that. And that's why I say that it's not really that important about what kind of screen you have in the end. It's about how you create that kind of interactive, immersive experience in those kind of 3D environments, because we have so much more information that you need to work in 3D, not in 2D.
I totally agree. It's a lot of, we miss a lot of content out there.
Can you just quickly expand on what you say when you say that?
No, now I'm gonna upset some people, but a lot of the gaming industry are making a lot of the games is shooting games. Especially it's for boys that are around 12 years. That's the focus, unfortunately. I was doing a talk on longevity, and I was interviewing Sweden's most oldest Counter-Strike team, and they are about 75, 80. And now with longevity, we are looking into what if we're gonna turn 150 years old. That's gonna mean that we're gonna play computer games a lot longer. Probably because our generation that is brought up with computer games will play computer games when we get older, in the same way our fathers and mothers were reading magazines and comic strips. But the discussion with that is that what kind of games would a game developer that is 80 years old develop?
Ooh.
That would probably not be a game where you run around and shoot terrorists or kill zombies with axes. So we need to have that kind of new way of looking at computer games and that as well. And that is the kind of content that we haven't started producing yet, or very, very limited, I would say.
Yeah, brilliant. I love this.
I would like to.
Yeah, go on, Martin. Then we need to move on to go through
Yeah.
all the...
But look at it like this. You know, when you had a city like 50 years ago, then you had a city map. And that was 2D. You probably have it in a paper like this. And that's a city map with some kind of information that is structured, that is kind of easy to understand when you have a map. And then suddenly, this city is actually flooded by information, because then it's flooded by information from social media and from GIS system, the geographical information system, and whatever actually. So it's kind of flooded. And then you start to understand that, we cannot keep on having track of the map of the city in a paper. Then you're moving into the digital space, and suddenly you start to create this map of the city in a 3D environment. And then you transform that 3D environment into Unreal, as an example. And then suddenly we have the digital twin that you can have from a city today. And then you can just take that digital twin of the city, because it's built in Unreal, and just place it in Fortnite. And suddenly you can go around and shoot around in Gothenburg in Fortnite, but you cannot, because they have removed the weapons when you go into Fortnite in Gothenburg. Yes. But then it's like, okay, they didn't fulfill. But that's the kind of thing that is happening right now, that a growing amount of data demands new kind of interfaces and ways of structuring information. And that's why it actually needs to be immersive. You cannot just look at it in a paper like this.
Brilliant. We should have hours and hours to talk about these things, because we were literally just scratching the surface. I'm so happy we're going to do more things together, because there's so much more to unpack here. With that, we're going to move on to the next one. I just remembered one thing from our conversation before, speaking of the headsets, and thank you so much for your insight into how to think about headsets in all these different dimensions, because I remember entering into this experience being very particular. I have to have this particular one, it has to look this particular way. But as a result of this exercise and doing this and learning more about the technology, I realized, just like you say, actually it isn't about the one way or the other. It really is depending on what it is you're doing for who, and they have both pros and cons. So that, and I really want to emphasize this for this talk as well. I am not here, and we are not here to say what is right or what is wrong. I really just want, together with Martin and Albert, we want to open up your eyes and perspectives to know what's out there and what's available and what's possible. And then it's up to each and everyone who's listening in to make your own informed choices. So moving on, plenty of strengths, obviously, using this new technology. I say new technology all the time, as if I'm, using XR, extended reality in 3D. But weaknesses then, what are the weaknesses? Let's say that you are interested in actually starting to play around with this, implement it again, either as a freelancer, as a creator, or as a company organization. What are the weaknesses?
Martin? I think one key thing is like the usability things, because independent on what kind of platforms you go into, it's not really a low threshold. It's kind of complicated. It's kind of complicated to start and develop those kind of things. It's kind of complicated to go in and actually start and consume many of those kind of things. I think that's one of the weaknesses. Then it's not weaknesses for all parts of the immersive and XR space like that, but some of those areas is really, really weak on how you actually do good UX, because it's also that many designers are not known to actually design for really interactive, open 3D worlds. They are experienced in other kind of design. When you design a web page, it's kind of easy, but as soon as you go in 3 dimensions, and it's starting to be really, really complicated. So I think this kind of the weaknesses is the possibility of being extremely complicated that makes some people fall into that kind of track instead of going into the simple track.
And speaking of the research that you've done, all those interviews and everything, did you pick up on any weaknesses from those answers?
Yeah, it's kind of a scattered landscape, I would say, that we see that many of the players that is involved in this field or in the surroundings, they see that they lack actually some joint place to meet up in a big scale. We have in some cities, like in Gothenburg, some places, in Stockholm, some places, in Linköping, some places, in Malmö, a little bit of places. But what is actually missing is the things of learning in Sweden to learn so that we are really connected between Gothenburg and Stockholm, and then connected out to the different other cities that has an opportunity to create some kind of valuable things.
Albert, what about you?
So I look at this as a total new innovation platform, and that brings a lot of challenges to the pioneers, the first people who are the people going to try this out. So as an example, the Swedish libraries are installing this, and I went to a conference, a 2-day conference, talking to what kind of challenges they had, and how can we build something that supports a community that supports them. Just looking at the libraries as an organization today are financed by the local municipalities, which means that there are many different owners. So they couldn't own an app together. That's a great example of this being a problem, because how can, if you don't have central muscle, it's going to be a lot of small, a lot of scattered innovations happening without any major force, so to say. But then it comes to the installation. How do you actually, in a library, how do you look so that these hardware is charged all the time? How do you make them clean afterwards if you're going to go between different people? How do you connect it to the internet, since the IT department of the municipality do not want you to connect this into that? What kind of profile are you using? Are you using the profile of the person, or in this case it was Facebook profiles? How do you make Facebook profiles of all the libraries so that they could get these kind of amounts? How can you buy apps? How can you? They don't even have a Visa card. Should you take it on your own Visa card? What happens when you? Yeah, and so on. It's the same kind of when you're installing a new system. It's so dependent on everything else, because it's more of a platform rather than it's downloading a game to a computer or buying a new sort of computer.
Yes, and I mean, right now there is a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, not as much about this. So from a weakness perspective, what should people know about today, both strength and weakness, I guess? Why should they get into this now, and what weaknesses might they be able to, should they work on now before it's too late? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. I think one key thing which we also found a lot in the different interviews, and also completely agreeing myself, is that you need to be centered around the humans, not the technology. Too many of those kind of initiatives out there is centered around the technologies, and then suddenly you lose it, because the technology is there to help people. So start and gather insights about what's the value for the people. If I can do a test and find something that some 100 people come and say, this is the best experience that I ever had, I think then you have a really good argument to find money to actually do something from this. And if you are coming to that board instead with like, we have tried out this technology and it works like this. Okay, so what? Be centered about giving value to people and the human. And I think that's one of the key things, to find new values, find next step, and actually do something that is valuable for true.
Albert, anything final you want to add to this segment?
To the weakness. No, it's. I just want to say that the tipping point we haven't reached the tipping point yet. But it's not a question if we're going to do that. It's just a question when we're going to do that. And it's an extremely powerful technology, and everybody who's tried it on understands that.
Yes. You should definitely visit Visual Arena in Gothenburg, come to Epicenter in Stockholm, and there are plenty of other places. And again, an invitation to our listeners, do let us know, are you working with this technology? What are you doing? What are you up to? Do you have places people can go and try it out? Because that's really the first step, as you said, to try it out, to test it for yourself, to see what's possible, and that will also open up doors. So moving on then, it sounds as if there are plenty of opportunities with extended reality, creating and being and working in 3D. So what are some amazing opportunities that you see? Albert, do you want to take this one first?
Opportunities from a global level. I think the opportunity for the technology is, as you said, is really huge. I think that it's gonna become the new way of learning things. The technology is very strong. And once again, a great opportunity is that a lot of people investing a lot of money in it right now.
Oh, what do you mean by that when you say that? A lot of people investing money?
A lot of people are investing money in getting better software tools and getting new kind of hardware. And some people talking about this technology being the technology that's gonna kill the phone, the mobile phone. And we have a new economy that hasn't been built yet. What if we have glasses that can do all this different stuff, where we can get information all the time, and also using the cameras and audio into that. We're gonna wear that all the time, of course, when the right applications are there, and we as humans are trying to compute the world that we live in, the complex one. So yeah, that's probably the biggest opportunity that we have. And if you want to be in that race, definitely you should start looking into this right now.
Brilliant. What about you, Martin? Opportunities. Tell us. We want to know everything. What are the opportunities? What can we make out of this?
I think one of the key opportunities that you should start with is actually that is a lot of people right now that is interested and curious about how do you create new experiences that kind of mix and blend the physical space and the digital space. And that's kind of what a lot of things around immersive intelligence is actually focusing on. It's not about, sometimes it's solely digital, but it's also about blending these things. And if you are like an example here, also like if you are an artist and you want to do something that is really true touching, you need to blend and understand this thing of, can we actually strengthen this physical experience by adding a new layer that is digital, that is immersive? Or can we play with this? We are doing a lot of different kind of experiments around those kind of things, and we really love it. We did an experiment just like it, I think it was in May, where we created an immersive experience about the story of the Swedish laundry room. And then we had a little bit more than 100 people there as well, visiting and participating in this experience. And if we look at what they actually told us, is that it was extremely touching. Some people cried, some people cheered, and they started to like interact with people in a way that they never should have done before. And they got calm in a way in some certain parts of the experience in a completely new kind of way. And I think this is the opportunity. If you want to explore and find really strong ways of touching people, reaching people, influencing people, then this is a media that is extremely like powerful. United Nations named virtual reality the empathy machine, because what is happening when you go into this kind of immersive things is that the brain doesn't understand that the brain is being fooled. We understand that when we see a 2D picture, but when we go into this kind of environment, we don't understand that we are being fooled. And that's also why you can be seasick and so on. But then suddenly you can actually have a tool where you can play with fantasy in a way that where your brain thinks it's reality. And I think this is extremely interesting. Actually, my daughter, she's 13. She was playing a horror game in virtual reality a day ago. And I mean, you can really touch people. We worked with an artist from Vietnam a while ago, and he was using virtual reality about learning about the tsunamis that went into Vietnam or Taiwan. And then he was by purpose using the things that is happening in virtual reality about being seasick. So when I tried this experience my first time, I like said, okay, oh no, not one again. This kind of experience when you go out seasick. And then he was telling us how he did it with purpose. So you felt extremely awful about this tsunami coming in, killing people, and all of those kind of things. And I think this is the opportunity that is out there. You can touch people and move people and reach people in a way that is kind of hard to do in other ways. Of course, you can do it completely physical sometimes, but then you cannot scale it. But this is in a format where you can scale it and send it throughout the world. And I think that's the opportunity that I'm really curious about.
Yeah, so inspiring. And I immediately thought of one of our members, composer Karin Renqvist. She's one of our most brilliant composers in Sweden. And she's actually written a piece about tsunamis, Strandad. And I just want to mention it here because suddenly I see all these opportunities just by the examples that you are mentioning, how you can also add music to it. You can add different kinds of art. Albert, you mentioned fashion before. There are ways we can create skins in this 3D world and so forth. So powerful examples. And obviously an opportunity is the monetization part. There are ways to actually monetize. And I know both of you have testified to that when you have worked with artists and creators, that they've also been able to actually monetize on the back of that. So that's great. So moving on, we are now going to move into threats. Threats is a huge topic. I find, especially this summer in 2025, there's a lot of talk, not only in Sweden and in the Nordics and Europe, but actually worldwide. There's a lot of talks right now and concern about safety and where our data is going, the tech giants that are sort of harvesting our data. And obviously with spatial, with extended realities and all the technologies that we're discussing, they are recording everything, right? So please, from your perspective, can you share what are you seeing as the biggest threats, both known and maybe some that we don't talk about that we should know about?
I think the whole thing with technology galloping right now and really going so fast, we don't have the ethical and the moral things in place. I think that is extremely threatening. I know that you and me, we had a discussion the other day, Sophie, and we were talking about in some states in the US, it's illegal to use somebody's skin to skin an avatar, as an example. And that could look a little bit silly in the beginning, but then, why shouldn't I be able to have a talk with Tom Cruise? Is Tom Cruise actually, does he own his own skin or his looking? And then we had the discussion, well, what if you taking somebody else's husband or wife's skin and dressing up and you're having conversations and doing things? I think we're in so early days when it comes to what we're able to do with all this, and looking into humanity. We're quite nasty when it comes to certain things. So it's going to be that is a big threat I see. And who owns what? What is your intellectual property rights. That is also something that is extremely behind when it comes to what it needs to be developed, as an example.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Roland Williams, thanks so much for saying hello here, Roland. He wrote, what about avatars, licensing, imagery, audio? Yeah. Obviously, you can cut through the entire SWOT analysis, both good things and bad things. But from a threat perspective, that's why I actually kept it to this final one. The conversations that I hear around new technology, especially from the cultural and creative industries, is very much centered around copyright and IP. And there's a lot of work being done, especially within the EU right now, but also with other parts of the world. It's like, how do we make sure fair remuneration, that our artists are being well paid? But now that we're entering the world of gaming, now that we're entering the world of 3D, and what you said is one thing to speak with dead people, but what about when we start to enter a whole new market where you can just be cloned and people start to do things and create things with you that you might not want to do? Anything you want to add finally to that, Albert, to that particular one, living people? And then Martin, I'd love to bring your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think you can disgrade both dead and living people. So we have a few cases, even in Europe, when the Italian prime minister was skinned and put up on websites. So yeah, it's a threat.
It's a threat.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a big threat. Martin.
I think one of the threats is actually, right now I feel a little bit afraid, because should you say the right things or the wrong things, or do I actually stand for what I'm saying, and is this being recorded, and how does it being spread, blah 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 and so on. But then you need to come back and actually ask yourself, if you are an artist, if you look at the art that is actually touching the world and making a difference, it's of course it's challenges what is out there. And I don't want to go out and say to everyone, just break all the rules and so on. But I think one of the biggest threats is that you don't do anything, that you don't find the energy that you need to create things, to influence, to challenge, to disrupt. Because I've been doing, as you said before, I've been calculating, and I know that I've been doing like more than 1,000 different kind of innovation projects. Some of them in the art space, some of them in the business space, some of them with academia and with public things. And often, when you bring in the legal people, and then I have started to look back what has happened when we bring in the legal people. And the thing is that I've never got like fined or judged in any kind of way. So I've got through it, but I've been breaking a lot of different kind of rules. So I think you need to have with you that if you want to do something that is actually worth something, you need to challenge those kind of things as well. Of course, you can go in and talk about GDPR, ethics, and whatever, but also actually don't ask all of those kind of questions all the time. Because it's extremely important that you keep on doing things. And of course, you should not kill people. You should not make people harm and so on. But you need to challenge here as well, because it's art. And a lot of other like XR projects in the businesses, of course, they should ask more of those kind of questions. But as an artist, you need to also go out there and actually challenge and try and touch people, try and do different kind of things. Otherwise, if you look back on all the art that has influenced you, I think you can see some kind of common pattern that they are challenging, they are touching, they are doing something different. So I think the biggest threat is that you don't follow your heart, you don't follow like the energy that you have, instead of you look into different kind of legal threats and so on, but don't do it.
Well,
follow your heart instead.
Yeah, and this follow your art instead of your heart, or heart.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. this conversation that we're having right now is one of the most important ones in the art space. And I really want to thank you, Martin, for bringing that up. You know, the biggest threat is actually not doing what you're being called to do, because when we as you said, when you know that you're being recorded, you might start to censor yourself. What I'm seeing more and more of is actually the fact that we don't know that we are being recorded. And especially with this new digital innovation that we're talking about here today, the problem now is that you don't know that you're being recorded. You don't know that people are actually capturing what you're saying. And then that can then be distributed and sold and in many, many different ways. I'm really concerned about that. So we are kicking off a project called Cultural Firewall together with Hanna Linderstål at Epicenter Stockholm, and together with you, hopefully, and others in our ecosystem, because we really want to dig deeper into this. It's like, how do you, as you said, how do you stay true to your art? How do you go out there whilst at the same time making sure you cannot be prosecuted, or that you have to hide because how can I say, artistic freedom is very, very big concern for us, and democratic values as well. As you can tell, even from talking about this is something I'm really passionate about, concerned about, and I welcome a debate about it. So thank you so much for doing that. We also have in Sweden right now a conversation about our Swedish PM who talked about using AI, and that caused a storm. Should he use it? Should he not? What is he saying? What is happening with the data? So I think it's healthy to talk about these things and to learn together as a community. So I notice that time is up, and before we wrap up and close down this session for today, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or that we should know about, that you desperately want to share with the world? Please let me know.
I can just tell about, because we are at Visual Arena, I used to say like this to anyone coming to Visual Arena in Gothenburg: if you want to do something here, we have a lab, we have good workshop facilities and conference facilities. If you want to do something here, it's actually for free. Just come here. But we will always ask you, is it valuable for our network? And we have a network of a lot of artists, and also public organizations, academia, and private businesses. And this is what we are trying to do all the time. We also have an open lab called Narrative XR Lab that is for artists that coming here and trying to see how can you use XR in the narrative space in new kind of ways. So keep an eye on what is happening at Visual Arena, and I hope to see you here one day.
Brilliant.
And together with Epicenter Visual Arena, we're applying for a 5-year program, building a community. Are you interested as a creative, an artist, or designer to be part of that? Just put us up on LinkedIn and send a direct message.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Obviously, we will also be sharing more about this throughout our channels with Arts Dynamics. We'll make sure to post links to both Visual Arena, to the Extra Cluster, to all these amazing things that you're working on. And we are really proud and happy to be part of this too, with the Cultural Center and other things that we're working on. Yes, and because we also have a question, so how can artists, designers, creatives take part of the project? And you just shared that, so that is absolutely brilliant. So with that being said, I really do hope that we've been able to shine some light on the world of XR, immersive technologies, and all of that. And I really want to thank Martin and Albert so much for your time, for being here with us today. I'm really excited about what the future holds for all of us. Next week, we are going to bring in one of our first, or actually it is our first member organization. I'm actually going to make a reveal now. Do you want to hear it? Who are they? Next week, we are bringing on the Swedish National Touring Theatre, Riksteatern. They are now the first member organization of our Arts Dynamics Creative Tech Cluster. And this is a great opportunity for all of you, all of us here to connect, because obviously they are a national touring theater. And we will tune in next week to hear more about their work, what they're seeing and doing. They are also working a lot with different kinds of technologies, including this. And I know for a fact that they are working on a few projects now that I'd love to hear more about. So we'll take this conversation into next week to continue what we're talking about. And I also want to go do a shout out for another project that we're working on the 28th of August, which is a Digital on Stage, a EU project with 6 countries together with Intercult during Stockholm Fringe Festival. So many different countries, very international, just like we talked about here. This is very much an international community with brilliant people just like Albert and Martin and all the people that I just mentioned. So drop us a comment. What was your biggest takeaway from today? What is your action going to be that you're going to take after this session? We'd love to know that. And with that, Martin and Albert, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you,
Sophie, for great work.
Cheers. Over and out.
Cheers.